600,000 prisoners are released from prison every year. And all we talk about is the recidivism rate, highlighting failures. But this is a new time now. It's time to celebrate. Time to admire. Time to honor those who got out of prison and never looked back. Doing something with themselves and their lives while giving back. This is the Reentry journey. I am your host, Cornell Sims.
All right, man. Yeah, we are back with another episode of the Reentry Journey. I am your host, Cardell Sims. Welcome everybody that is tapped in and tuned in with us today. As we have a great guest. He just now tuning in with us. We was trying to get some things together, get everything together, but he's just now tuning in with us, and it's a great timely fashion. And so before we go any further, let me just give a brief intro on who we got on our show today. I've been doing research on this brother for a while, and in a short time of his release to now, which has really been a short time when you look at the resume work that this brother has done and the things that he has accomplished. And that's really one thing that stood out about me. His bio from 17-year-old high school dropout now listen what I'm saying, from 17-year-old high school dropout to the San Francisco Reentry Council. We talking about from a dropout to the Reentry Council. His journey's been a breakout story. Self-educated, he is an award-winning entrepreneur and leader. He's out there putting in a lot of work and doing some amazing things. He successfully took the California Board of Prisons here in court and won a constitutional excessive punishment ruling. This changed youth offenders hearings regulations that released him and thousands of others. He's a member of the San Francisco Jail Justice Coalition and sits on the San Francisco Sheriff Department Oversight Board. As the editor-in-chief of the San Francisco Bay View newspaper, he plans to write the lead for Black First Unity. And not only that, he's also the executive director of Life After Next. We can go on with the accolades as I've been doing. It's a lot, but I commend this brother, and I'm glad to have him on as a guest. Welcome to the Reentry Journey, Mr. William Palmer. Welcome to the Reentry Journey, King.
Thank you so much, Cardell. It's an honor to be here. I love your logo down here with the prison bars on the floor and the orange jumpsuit down there with it.
Yeah, taking it all off, leaving it where it's at. As that's how I look at it. It fit perfectly with the Reentry Journey, actually, as my journey as well. Leaving that, you got to leave it all where it's at to get where you want to go, and got the light at the end of the tunnel. So most definitely. Yeah. So thanks a lot for coming on to being a guest on the Reentry Journey, man. I really appreciate it. That's the first thing I want to say thank you, and I appreciate you and the work that you're doing.
Thank you again, and it's an honor to be here. It's always an honor to give a voice to those who, the comrades that we left behind, soldiers that are still in the fight. A lot of times we talk about Black Lives Matter, and it focuses on those who have transitioned to the next life, which is an honor to be a martyr. And so they're taken well care of. Don't think they're dead. They're far from dead. They're extremely alive and in a better place. But those of us who are locked behind these gates, these bars, these bricks, with the torture that goes on inside of these institutions and facilities throughout the nation and around the world, these are the Black lives that truly matter. Those that are soldiers that are falling on the sword and are doing time. Don't get me wrong, there are some people in there that have not decided to change their lives for the better. And that's why the work of healing them is necessary. But for those soldiers that are behind the wall, political prisoners, those who are victims of a system that was designed to put them back into slavery from the moment chattel slavery for the individual white man was taken away from the treasonous losers of the Civil War and given over to the treasonous losers of the Civil War as a government to do the same thing. So the Democrats, the Republicans, both sides of these people are culprits of this mass incarceration, this modern day slave plantation, and it is my life purpose to make sure that if I do nothing more than free some, if not destroy the whole system. And so I know that's a fight on our hands. That's a war on our hands, and it may result in my deaths. And so be it. I was born to die.
Mm, right, true indeed. So speaking of for people, you see you now, and people might just with the words that you're speaking right now, and your purpose and your movement. You wasn't always at this point, and you talking about you say you're born to die. So let's go back to the beginning. What was your upbringing like?
My upbringing contradicts everything that happened to me, uh, but then again, maybe not. I was born and raised in Riverside, California, on the east side. We didn't know about gangs and whatnot as we do today. Now it's known as 1200 block, but I had no idea what that was. I wasn't involved in street activities, but I grew up on the streets, and so I skinned my knees and bruised my knuckles, just like anybody else, in order to grow up from boy to man. And about the age of 13, I decided to rebel against the Park Avenue Baptist Church, in which I was raised in. I was raised by female educators, a loving, loving mom who was a mom to many people. I just decided that wasn't for me. And I started to seek my way in life at the age of 13. So by the time I was 16, I had dropped out of school, was living in my own apartment, and was pursuing a career in polo on horses, not water. And I had made it. By the time I was 17, I was making $4,000 a month. And back then, that was grown man money. And so there was no need for education at that point. And most people who are successful today, like your Mark Zuckerberg, if you want to call that successful, he dropped out of school, but he had a rich family. I think it's the Rothschilds behind him. So he didn't really need college. He had all the resources he needed in life. But I did, because I'm a black man. And for many years, I ran from the term black man because I knew it as negro, the Greek word negro, that we get the word negro in Spanish and negro in English, and that means dead. And it wasn't until Sheikh Mohammed Sharif introduced me to the Shehu community of Balad Sudan that I understood the word Aswad, which is the word for black that I use, which means originator, the black robe of a judge, power, And so when I say black, I don't think negro, I think Aswad. So it gives me a different definition of who I am, and it empowers me instead of takes away my power or emasculates me, right? And so by the time I was 17, I was doing well. I had started partying. I had left my God consciousness at 13 at the doorsteps of the church and went out into the world, and I was partying so hard that I lost that job. And that shook me because I had made it. I had made it. I had did everything I did. At 9 years old, when we moved from the east side to a different part of Riverside, where I went to an all-wealthy European school, at 9 years old, I said, I'm going to have what you got. And by the age of 25, I'm going to be a millionaire. At 9 years old, I made that contract to myself. And so at 17, I was getting ready to make $1 million a year playing polo. And so I had did it. I was 8 years ahead of schedule. And so when they snatched that from me, I thought that my whole world had turned upside down. And as a teenager, that's what happens. The littlest thing. This was just a bump in the road. I could have got back on my feet and got it right back again. I could have just apologized and he probably wouldn't let me back in. But as teenagers, we think so emotional. We wrapped up, especially if we're raised by women. And so I decided to take a gun that I had previously got from a robbery It was unloaded, a 357 Bulldog. Matter of fact, bought a ski mask. I actually wrote a play called The Mask, and went to look to rob somebody for credit cards to hold me over until my next move, my legitimate next move. So I made an illegitimate move in order to make my next legitimate move. But that's what they raised me on. Western movies, shoot 'em up, gangbang movies on TV and TV series. It was always the bad man was the guy who was the white collar guy who was doing crime that never got caught. But anyway, I admit my mistakes. I robbed this man. He was an off-duty Riverside Police Detective Sergeant. I walked up to him, demanded his wallet. He knew that if he showed me his wallet, I would see that he was an officer, and he feared for his life at that point that I would probably shoot him or whatnot. But I had no intentions whatsoever to kill anyone. He suggested that we go to an ATM that was next door to the police department, and so I was young and dumb, and I fell right into it. And once he got there, he retrieved his gun and shot at me 15 times and hit me one in the knee. Make a long story short, I got caught and sentenced as an adult, arrested, tried, and convicted. The plea bargain was either I take this 7 to life plus 2, or I go to trial and possibly get life without. And so they scared me, and my public defender, who was a dump truck, Maria, she said I should take it, and I eventually did, and I was sent off to YA to grow up for a couple of years until they sent me to the big plantation, to the big house, and where I would serve out the rest of my life. That's what they intended to do.
So when you went to the YA, was this your first time ever in any type of trouble or getting sent off or anything like that?
I got into some minor incidents before that, but this was the major. This was me going to the major leagues right off the bat, and they didn't give me no second chance. So this is my first time in YA as well, and I was surrounded by Tupacs. And here I was what's that, Lenny Kravitz. I'm Lenny Kravitz surrounded by Tupacs and Hispanic wannabe Tupacs. What's the dude on the Dope Man, meet my little friend?
Scarface.
Yeah, I'm surrounded by Scarfaces and Tupacs. How in the world am I going to survive in this? But I was being led by the Divine One. That's how. I never had to stab anyone. Although I picked up a few knives to go do some work, I never had to follow through. I learned how to make them, I learned how to hide them, and I learned how to use them. But I thank God that I never had to use them. And from the moment I stepped foot in YA, even in juvenile hall, I studied so hard, and it took me like from February to August, September to finally get an A+ on the spelling test. And that meant the world to me. So when I got to YTS, I immediately rolled in a GED program, got my GED, and then went into the high school program. I didn't get to finish the high school program because I got into a fight. And when I fight somebody, it's an adult fighting a minor. And so they went ahead and sent me to Old Folsom by way of Chino. And when I got to Chino, I got on the yard, and these two big Crips, I didn't know at the time, these two big Crips that blocked out the sun when they walked up to me was asking me where I was from, because I had just left the wake pile with some Bloods, which I had no idea. And so they was questioning my loyalty, who I was. And if it wasn't, again, by the Divine One, me standing next to my cellie at the time, he said, "Oh no, he's unaffiliated. He's with me. I got him. Don't worry about it." Just like that. Otherwise, my ass is gone. My ass is gone.
So you came into the system of a non-affiliated or anything like that, especially out there in Missouri. I'm from Missouri, so Missouri probably during this time, and really right now, Missouri's state prisons actually run different than the prisons out west, California prisons, stuff like that. Like told them, I went to the feds as well, but I know the similarities once I went to the feds. So for those who may be tapping in, can you explain the that process of being a non-affiliate inside of whether you want to say, where you want to go, prisons, even the YA systems,
Yeah.
in a system that is nothing but gangs and things like that. How hard is it to maneuver being a non-affiliate in them situations?
It's walking on eggshells, brother. I did 31 years on eggshells. Uh, well, I would say not the whole 31, because at a certain point, I was extremely confident in who I was as a Muslim, and uh, there wasn't really that type of fear as before. But it was there. It was there. It was always, like a gray cloud hovering above me. I just carried an umbrella of 5 pillars.
Mm-hmm.
So when you in the CDCR or even YA, uh, you are divided first by ethnicities. You have black, white, Hispanic. Hispanic is divided by Pisces, which is someone who's outside of the country, and then those who are Southern Mexican and Northern Mexican, and then the Northern Mexican is divided between Bulldogs and other Northern Mexicans. So that car right there is complicated in itself to navigate.
Right.
Yeah, but it's worse to be a white person in prison, because you're usually some type of racial. There's those who are a part of racial organizations that hate groups, Aryan Brothers, so on and so forth, right? Ku Klux Klan members, skinhead, you name it. They got so many I can't even get, but they all gathered together. And then you have non-affiliated whites who just got caught up in the mix, but they have no choice but to be racist. They have to follow the racist policies. And so the guy might want to be friends with me, but if he got caught eating after me, drinking after me, his ass was dead, gone.
Right.
And those people were susceptible mostly to being raped, being robbed, being mules, carrying stuff, holding stuff. And so their non-affiliateds had it way worse than black non-affiliates. And there is no non-affiliates among Hispanics.
Right. Nah,
there is none of that.
Nah,
There's no choice of that. Once you get in, you got to pick one, and that's what you're going to be, right? And so, and then you have your Native Americans, which hung out with the white boys. So that made it very odd. I thought Indians and Cowboys and Indians was against each other. But I guess in some weird political fashion, they will allow people who look dead on white go into their little areas, their little parts that they had in the prison, and sweat with them. But we'll look at a person like me who actually has some Native American blood. I am Native American just for the fact of being African American or being black. We were here before it. We are a part of that culture and system. Anyway, I won't go too far into that, but they don't know their history. And when you're ignorant of your history, you do ignorant things. And so, and then you had the other car. The other car was made of mostly Asians. Because there was a few of them, island Pacificers, so on and so forth, Indians from India, and so on and so forth. And so at a certain point, when I became educated in who I was, I wrote to the California Bureau of Investigation and Identification and told them, I am not your niggas. I'm not black as you consider it. I'm from Balada, Sudan, and I want my nationality of Sudanese to be recognized by the state of California. So they say, okay, no problem. That's exactly your right. Under your international law, that's your right to do that. And we will recognize you having a nationality and being a part of the family of nations. And so they mark me into the other category. So here it is. Here it is. I'm the only dark-skinned cat that is actually black. Well, you might have some Jamaicans and some Nigerians, you might have some Africans, Egyptians, or somebody that is actually in that car too, because they're not considered black when you have a nationality outside of the United States that will run. But the black people, the Crips, the Bloods, the Northern, the 415s, the Kumis, the BGFs, so on and so forth, all those people, they would look at me as a traitor. But I had to explain to them that I'm practicing a law that gives me the ability to move when all y'all are locked down.
Right.
So now I'm able to pass at least information to and fro to make sure that we're aware of what's going on, if not other things that is necessary to fight this war that we're in. And so some of them, because of their ignorance, could not even just buy into that. But most of the people who were soldiers was like, okay, let's see what happens. And so for 31 years, I was a true soldier. I did what I was supposed to do. And I won because I got to be free as well and help those along the way. And so that is the arrangement. And the CO and the correctional officers and the administration, the warden, they like to keep us separated in these categories. And that way we fight among each other instead of fight them. And so
Right.
a part of my new mission today, because of that upbringing, because I was raised in the penitentiary, because of that upbringing, I want to first unify the Black community here in the United States, specifically San Francisco, California, and the rest of the nation, if not the world, that we are Black first unity, right? That means leave off Christian, Muslim, Jew, leave off LGBTQ, straight, tall, short, fat, thin, entertainer, whatever you might label yourself to be, your profession or whatever. Let that be something else that you do on your own time. But when it comes to doing anything, it should be Black first.
Mm.
And this is not an attack or a repudiation against any other communities and organizations, because they do it already. Italians are Italians first, Jews are Jews first, whites are whites first. If you watch Survivor on TV, you see that all the time. Big Brother, all of these social TV shows or social experiments. When it comes down to voting somebody off, the Black one is the first to go. And it's usually the white folks at the end talking about who's the last three or who's the last one standing. I ain't mad at them. They're doing what they're supposed to do. They're practicing the rules. And I want us to start practicing that. And it doesn't mean that we don't have relationships with people outside of our community, but at least allow our dollars to bounce 9 times in our community. At least go shop at our stores first before you go look to see if we don't have it. We should have our own hospitals. We should have our own grocery or food distribution centers. We should have our own banking, financial centers. We should have our own school centers. And we should have our own security enforcement apparatuses. And these are the things that help make a healthy, thriving community. And we don't have that. And that's what I'm pushing. So I hope I answered your question and then.
Yeah, you did. I was watching an interview of yours, man, and you said something, man, that brought me back to my childhood. You were saying how when you first got into YA, that's when you was able to wear the street clothes and stuff like that, and it's like they would have on the that streetwear, and you said you used to have the Z calves on,
Cavaricis and Cosby sweaters.
The Cavaricis. Now I ain't heard them Cavaricis in a long time, because when I was growing up, like you had to have a little bread to get them Cavaricis. Mama just wasn't going to get them, so that brought some things back. So how do we? So what played a role into that transformation from that person into who you are and who you becoming, as far as books, as far as knowledge? What put you on this path right there during your time while on the inside? What was it that got you on this path?
Thank you for that question, and it's a very important question of what got me on my path. Again, before I came out the womb, the angels, 140 days inside the womb, 3 veils of darkness, the angels came and visited me and told me what my name's going to be, what my purpose in life was going to be, and what my provision was going to be. I just had different plans. And so when I got to juvenile hall and I wrote a letter to my friends, they couldn't read it. That's how terrible it was. I couldn't read or write. And so that was my wake-up call. I was like, I can't even communicate. And I know that's a problem. And so when I got to YA, the first book I read since the 3rd grade. You hear me?
Yeah.
When I went to 4th grade, I didn't take a book home from school, let alone crack it open and read one. If the teacher didn't explain it in the classroom, I didn't learn it.
Right up, straight up.
and so when the first book that when I was able to finally read, like I told you, I got my A in juvenile hall, was the autobiography of Malcolm X.
Okay.
If that's not in your library, you're not Black.
Straight up.
If that's not in your library,
no, that's 100.
It's not Black first unity.
Yeah, you definitely. If you don't, I tell a lot of guys on, if you ain't read that, or if you don't got that in your library, or if you got it wherever in your Kindle, whatever, I don't know what you're waiting on.
You're missing a big, huge part of your lessons to being Black. And so when I read that, I said, wow, I can get out of prison. That's the first thing that came to my mind. I can get out of this and be somebody. I can get out of this and be a member of my community. Now I know what I'm supposed to be. Like, I was completely whitewashed. Right. I even told people at one point I was white. I use those words because I also understood what white meant even before I read what white meant and studied what white meant. I knew that white meant freedom.
Mm. And
We call it a privileged group, but it means free.
right. Yeah, it means free. They got it designed. It means purity. They got it's that's because that's why I wanted to ask next. What through reading the autobiography of Malcolm X, did it put you on things as far as your nationality and who you were and where you come from and how you really and you're not black and what's the science behind that? Did from the reading that autobiography, is that what pointed you in them directions? In them
It did.
directions?
It did, and it did. You would think because I'm Muslim that it pointed me towards Islam. I didn't even get that from the book. That flew right over my head. Right. And that's what almost half the book is about. His walk as a Muslim, right? But I saw his freedom and how he got it. And when he went to the UN and asked for something to happen, he asked for them to intervene in the genocide of Black people, and they said we can't because you don't have a nationality. He said your representative is the president of the United States. He has to come here and ask for help for you. And we all knew that that's not going to happen. So I said, what is this nationality thing? And why I don't have one? And why are Black people the only people in the entire world that doesn't have a nationality? And then we understand Kyrie. See, once you start studying what a nationality actually affords you, then you'll understand what Kyrie is talking about and why they came down so hard on keeping that information out of the mainstream. Mm-hmm. See, it's not about anti-Semitism. It's about understanding who you are, Black man, because when you find out who you are, we will go all the way back to when we ruled the world for 800 years.
Yes, straight up, and can't nothing intervene with right to blood and the right to land.
You feel me?
Right to soil.
And when I say white, I don't mean the skin, the pale skin. I don't mean the word that you look up in the dictionary. Nuh-uh. I'm talking about the social construct that they made with the world. See, when this country was became a sovereign nation, Egypt and Morocco were the first to acknowledge them, and they told them in their treaty, you and your citizens will be considered white in our land because it means free. You will be able to own land, you will have the protection, and so on and so forth of this country, and that is white. Black meant slave. So that is the social construct that we still live for today. They might not say that in words anymore, but you can feel it. It is practice. Right. So don't believe what a person tells you, believe what a person does to you. Because I could tell you I love you all day, but every time I plunge that knife deep down in your back, you don't feel loved. Oh, no. So, and this is not hate speech. This is intellectual education for us to wake up. This is wake up medicine. People say that they woke, and you might be woke, but that don't mean you conscious. See, there's unconscious, there's woke, and then there is consciousness. And consciousness is the action of woke. Is putting your wokeness into action in everything you do. As a Muslim, everything I do is subjugated by that. The way I use the bathroom, the way I eat, the way I go out into the world, the way I communicate, the way I interact with everybody is already given. And it's for me to be righteous, not for me to be stuck up, oh, I'm Muslim, I'm better than anybody, oh, I want it down. Most people don't even know I'm Muslim until they look into my background or until they really have an in-depth conversation, because I don't need to tell you that I'm Muslim to treat you like I am Muslim. Exactly. That's and so, right. So yeah. Okay. I hope I answered your question again, because sometimes
So did you what was the process like fighting for your freedom during this time as well?
Freedom started the day that I was locked up. When I looked at those steel doors with a little slit of a window, 2-inch by about 12 inches, and knew that I'm actually a slave. Like I'm separated from the world. If you've never been locked up, there's nothing that I can tell you to describe what that is. So freedom started the moment I knew I was locked up, and I was trying to figure out how do I get a key to this door. You know, I've been
Mm-hmm.
breaking into houses for a while before I tried to
Right.
go straight at 17. I know how to break in. Now I had to figure out how to break out. And so I began to read another book that is useful. If you don't have the entire collection of J.A. Rogers in your library, you don't know who you are. If you haven't read the ISIS paper, if you haven't read Ivan Van Sertim, The Golden Ages of the Moor, you don't got to be Muslim to be a Moor. That was a word that meant black too. Um, if you don't have certain books, I even just read My Grandmother's Hand. If you don't got certain books in your library, you're missing out. And so I began in earnest to seek my freedom too, is when I finally reverted to Islam in 1992. But by this time, I've been educated, I've been spiritually awakened, I'm physically fit. My diet and exercise routine is second to none. My body was a specimen of just pure power and quickness and all that. Like it didn't stop that until I was released at 48 and started
Right.
driving cars instead of walking and riding
Walking.
bikes.
Right.
And so I was free and worked on psychologically, spiritually, so on and so forth for decades, my brother. But it wasn't until I was 45 years old, and that's a magic number. 45, 4 and 5 equals 9. I'm soul brother number 9. This 9 means something. 9 is the number of completion. But at 40, I felt my brain, actually it was 39 and a half. I felt my brain change. At 45, I woke up out of a deep depression by a chant that went out by my sleeping era, and they said, "Stand up, man up." Now, man up is an acronym that stands for making rational decisions, acting with precision, never giving up your position, uplifting yourself, your family, and your community. Remember, we started with self, then your family, and then you spread out to community, which is worldwide, and then the P, positive living.
Mhm.
Positive living is so important. Every time I thought about doing something wrong, I said, that's not positive. And so when I heard that in this group that was led by Black Diamond, which is Sean Gage, taught me the difference between using rational thought, and I don't know what side my brain is rational now, versus emotional thought, I woke up. I
Okay.
really became conscious, and I stopped making decisions solely based off of emotion. I'm not fully unemotional, but now I use a lot of rational thinking that propelled me out of my prison. And I looked down after coming to this conclusion and I said, first, I see CDCR prisoner written all over my clothes in bright yellow.
Mm-hmm.
I said, okay, I am a prisoner of the CDCR. I need to go to the law library to figure out how to get out of being a prisoner of CDCR. Then I decided to love myself. You would think that I had already been loving myself. I only halfway liked myself enough not to commit suicide when I fell into that depression after my mom passed. But then I began to love myself and everybody around me, my friends and foes. And that day changed my life. I went to breakfast and said good morning to each and every one, looked them in the eye with love, and they responded in kind. And I said, wow, what a power. I recognized the reflection of that coming back to me. I said, wow, what a power. And that led me to filing my writ, going to my law firm of Melvin and Myers with my pit bull, Megan Halfstad as an attorney. And I said, I'm going to help you help me get up out of here. And that's what we did. And to make a long story short, we worked together. I devised a plan to get into the First District Appellate Court under Henry Butler, and it worked. And we got a constitutional excessive punishment ruling, and I freed myself along with thousands of other people. And I just met one yesterday on the phone. He didn't even know who I was, and he kind of started putting the pieces together. And he just started just praising me with, if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be here. And every time I get that, that's freedom. That was my liberation. Every time I hear somebody say, I wouldn't be free if it wasn't for you, because I don't wake up thinking that. I don't move thinking that. I only think about it when somebody says it, and it just takes my heart away, and that's freedom.
Right. And so you get released. What was that like? What were some of the challenges and things that you had to face after doing all this time to coming into society and dealing with probation. I mean, dealing with parole and a PO and things of that nature.
So our parole system is made up of former correctional officers. So that just tells you right there, yeah, that should be against the law. I had a parole officer who was a former correctional officer in the very prison I just left.
Oh no!
Come on, man.
Oh no! That's
And
crazy.
this man put me in jail 3 times for nothing.
And that's what they were just doing, just moving them up the ladder. Like, okay, you can come to CO, then you might get to a lieutenant, then we take you go and be a PO after you do so many years. That don't make no sense, man. That's crazy.
What happened was there was a realignment in California. I can't remember exactly when it started. There was a realignment. Laws had changed, and they were moving money from one law enforcement agency to another, and they were decreasing the amount of people in prison, and so the number of correctional officers also was going to be decreased. And so many of them made the move over into the probation department so they can keep their payment. They are some of the most well-paid people in the state of California, and their union is strong. Is one of the strongest in California. They are politician makers. They are leader makers, and so he couldn't send me the writ that I won, or the court case that I won. He couldn't send me back to prison because it was constitutional excessive punishment. So what he was trying to do was mess off my other claim of that I shouldn't even be on parole after all that time. And he didn't, even though I didn't win, he didn't get to do that. But the last time he put me in prison, I went up to him, I told him, I said, I forgot how I got out of prison. And that means I'm having trouble. That's why I'm having trouble on parole. And I told him I loved him. I said, you only doing what you're supposed to do. And I love you for doing it. Now I'm going to do what I'm supposed to do in a loving way. And in a matter of months, he actually was fired and never to be able to work as an agent again. That's the power of love. And so the reentry process was still challenging because parole does not make it easy for you. And so that's why I started Life After Next. Life After Next is a reentry housing program, a holistic reentry housing program. And the money has been kept away from me so far, but I'm not worried about it. Again, I've done what I was supposed to do, walking the path that I was given, and it's led me to where I'm at. But I saw that the Reentry Council needed some voices of formerly incarcerated people who won't sell out. Many formerly incarcerated people who came out with good intentions have been awarded money in order to divert them. And they have joined organizations and institutions that are just about making money. And some of them have even taken some of our rights, or tried to take some of our rights of privacy out. So I won't name that, because maybe I will in the future. But right now I am trying to do Black First Unity. So I'm trying to even protect those who are misguided and just try to give them guidance and not be one. One of the reasons why I became a Muslim is because Prophet Muhammad SAW said, when he knew the hypocrites among them, and that's what I'm talking about, these hypocrites that are within the reentry movement. When he found out the hypocrites among him, when he was established Islam on earth, his companions said, "Let's kill him. Let's get out. Let's weed him out." And he said, "Absolutely not." He said, "I don't want to be known as someone who kills my people." And so I, William Palmer, aka Soul Brother Number 9, aka Editor-in-Chief, I don't want to be known as someone who destroys my people either. But there will come a time when you have to choose between Black First Unity and working for other people's agenda, and you'll expose yourself and destroy your own self. And so when that process of reentry happened, I found myself in jail. They dropped me off. Here it is, a man who's been in prison for 31 years and 22 days, left the streets at 17 in 1988, arrives in San Francisco and dropped off on Turk and Taylor in Geo at 111 Taylor, among drug users, homeless people. The sidewalk was black, not, the color of cement, right? The sidewalk was the color of the pavement that the people were driving on from all of the filth.
Woo.
The people that was hanging out on these corners, I had never seen a day in my life before. I had no idea people could live like that. Like the shock of it all. I'm trying to describe it in a way without being disrespectful to the people, because I understand their plight, right? But the shock of this, fresh out. Now, mind you, the moment I got into the car, I threw up because I hadn't been in motion for 31 years. My sick, I got sick from traveling, car sickness, right?
Car sickness.
When I got to this location, I almost threw up again. Because I will tell you that the prison that I went in, it was cleaner than some of the hotels you might go visit, because we made sure we took care of the places that we spent time in, right? And so I was shocked that human beings could live in this condition. And then I went into jail, and it was like going into jail. Here it is, I'm supposed to be free, and my reentry housing is like jail. And so I knew then that what I was prepared for those 31 years, and that my life was not mine. My life belonged to my community, those who are incarcerated, formerly incarcerated, and the Black community as a whole, that my life is yours and I am of service. And that's how I've been living my reentry. So I joined the Reentry Council as a sentencing commissioner. Now here it is, a 17-year-old kid who robbed an off-duty Riverside police detective and moved him to his ATM for, that's with a kidnapping charge. Now I'm supervising, or at least I am in the same room telling them how to police the city.
Right.
Huh? The city. That's what San Francisco is known as, the city, right? And so I'm like, I feel like Joseph in the Bible, where his brothers threw him in the well, the Pharaoh came and got him, and then after he did his time, he put out on a charge as a minister of the nation of Kemet, right? I'm like, hey, I'm biblical, I'm Quranic, bro. I've arrived, man. It brought joy to my heart that, you know, that I could fill those shoes, at least the big toe of that shoe, right? And then that led me to the San Francisco Sheriff Department Oversight Board, because people started to see me as someone who kept it authentic and kept it real, that I didn't sell out, and that I told it like it was. I said, you guys are slave drivers. I tell them all the time, y'all slave drivers. All y'all law enforcement agencies are slave drivers. You go out and catch the runaways and you try to put them back in. So stop playing games. Stop playing these games.
Straight up. Quit playing. Yeah, let's quit playing these games. No doubt. So I also seen that not too long ago that you went on a wellness retreat. Can you explain the importance of that retreat?
Yes, and like I said, I live my life as a purpose life. So I don't sweat, you know, what could or could not happen. But I booked a ticket. So my sponsor and a good friend, Linda Parker Pennington, asked me if I wanted to join her, because they didn't have a lot of men. It was female dominated, so she was just trying to look to get us some type of balance. So she was looking for some men, and she said, "Would you like to go to this retreat in Mexico for MEA, which is Modern Elder Academy?" And I was like, "Sure. Who wouldn't want to go to Baja, Mexico?"
Right. Yeah.
I don't care what you're gonna be teaching. I just want to go to Baja, Mexico. That was my first thought, right? But I was like, I was unemployed at the time and had been unemployed since last November of 2021. And it was only by the grace of God sending manna from heaven that I was able to pay rent and all my other bills, right? And I was like, I just got a problem. How can I go to Mexico when I don't even know how I'm going to pay rent? And she says, okay, let's work on that. And I said, okay, let's work on it. I got my rent paid. She got me a scholarship that I only had to pay $1,500 out of the 45 to go to Mexico. I said, okay, now I had to come up with money for the plane ticket. And I said, okay, I need one more shot. And I called on my brother. We called him Ghost, and I can't remember. And his real name is Harry Cook, but I can't remember his Muslim name because I rarely use it. He dropped me 5 bills. Ex lover of mine dropped me 3, and my mom, who took my mom's place, she adopted me. She dropped me 5 bills. And I said, here I go. I'm out. I got my plane ticket. I got my plane ticket and some spending money, which I didn't need. I ended up paying bills with the rest. But that's how God works in my life, right? And so I got there, and still I have no idea where I'm going and why. And I'm supposed to ask permission from my parole officer. I don't. I just bought my ticket, got my passport, and I left. And when I got off the plane in Mexico, Guadalajara, I was like, whoa, this was I've traveled already before out the country and across the country, but this was the first time, bro, that I booked the flight, packed my own bag, got myself to the airport, got on the plane, got off the plane, got to a foreign country, figured out how to navigate that situation, and to my destination by myself.
Mm.
That was an accomplishment, because
Right.
at times I get anxiety just walking out my front door because I don't know what to expect, because I've never had a key to my own comings and goings for 31 years. Even today, it's a little bit, but in the beginning, I would just freeze and shake, and sometimes I wouldn't even go out. I just stay home. If I
Wow.
had to go, I would go. But if I did not have to go outside that front door, I would just stay home and work on proposals, because I didn't even watch TV for the first almost year. So I'll be on my computer, I'll be doing things and keeping my brain functioning, or try to pick up on a chick or two, so I can make love to somebody. 31 years is a long time.
Right. Straight up.
I'm gonna keep it real. I was trying to love on somebody, right?
Right. Hey,
And make
that-
some babies. So I got there, and it was an oasis, bro. I can't even explain. It was like Paradise Island.
Mm.
It was like Paradise. I had my own room in this loft of an apartment like thing. Other people had their own. I took a shower inside of a sauna. The swimming pools was great. A heated jacuzzi. The people fed me breakfast, lunch. Not like prison. I got fed
Right.
breakfast, lunch, and dinner before. I know what that's like. These people would serve it to me. Pick up the plate like at a restaurant. All I had to do was sit at this table overlooking the Pacific Ocean, sunsets and sunrises. It was phenomenal. And then we would sit in this big, huge process circle early in the morning when we got up, and we would just process. We would hold the talking stick and would go around in the circle. And for the first 3 days, I said very little. I would say, I say a little bit here and there. And then Chip Conley would tell me, who he was. I didn't know who Chip Conley was. And then one day we were walking to the bread, and he was like, William, you've been hitting towards you, and I kind of know already, but, why was you locked up? And I know what that question means. Like they don't want, they want to know, am I a mass murderer? Am I a rapist? Am I dangerous? They want to know I'm good. I was like, okay, I'll tell you. I was 17 years old. I was dumb, full of cum, and I did this stupid thing, and wooty with me. And after I told him, he was like, oh, hey, how you doing, Will?
Right.
It was all good. So I said, okay, if he reacted like that, let me go ahead and tell this. So MEA, anybody can go, but it's predominantly like white people win, like European Americans would go, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you would have a sprinkle of chocolate chips among this, cookie dough. But this was an all-black MEA, the first of its kind, and so everybody in the room except Chin Conley was black. And so about 3 days in, I told him my story, and I had them all crying. I wasn't trying to do no crying. This is old news to me.
Right.
So I was like, so they welcomed me in. They was like, oh my God. Like these black people, some of them had never experienced this, being in this close contact with somebody that was incarcerated. So that made me feel good. And then I met a good brother named Winston. He's Jamaican. He lives in DC area. And I was just like, wow, he became my brother instantly. And one day he was telling his story, and I almost cried. It was right there. It was right there. It was right there. And I just kept blinking it away. I hold it open, I fan it away. I was like, I don't know these people. See, in prison, I grew up. I can't do no crying. I can't show that type of emotion. I get hurt.
And it's crazy you said that, because I had posted this video on one of my social media accounts of this guy who just did some long prison time, but he got out and he surprised his son sitting at this. They went out, took the son out to eat, and he sat next to him. And when the son looked over, he seen that it was his dad. And the son broke down crying. And the dad went to try to console him, but he pulled himself back into where the mother had to kind of like confirm, like it's all right to. She put his hand back on the son's back, and I had to explain to people, like, when you do a lot of time incarcerated in the place where you don't show no emotions, or if somebody is going through something emotional, you need to tell, man, give them their space, man, let them have get out the cell, let the cell in. His mama died, or what I'm saying, it's hard for you to get out and untrain that. Like you gotta be coached into going back to showing emotions and stuff like that.
Right. And I even told you about thinking rational now. I was like, I ain't got time for this emotional side no more. That triggers me into doing something that'll put me back in the penitentiary. So
Mm-hmm.
so it was like about 5 days in, I had decided to give myself permission to cry. And I got that stick that day and I told him, I said, if I cry in front of you, if I let you in this vulnerable, intimate space of mine and you betray me, I probably gonna hurt you. I'm just keeping it real. So
Mm-hmm.
if you want this, we do this when people say something that's good that we agree with. I was like, if you want this, okay. I said, but I'm gonna give myself permission to cry. And I began to tell this story about how I was associating the experience that I was going through with my mother, how from before I was even old enough to look barely at the stove, I could turn it to 365 degrees. We would cook, we would bake cakes and cookies and stuff. And she would put me up on the counter and I would get stuff out of cabinets and stuff. And so we are baking bread together at this place. We are breaking not only baking physical bread and breaking physical bread, but we breaking bread with each other, like knowledge and understanding with each other. And I was telling them that, that this remind me of that. And I began to allow my tears to flow and, get and I let go. And like I said, I gave myself permission to cry and to feel and to connect with these people. And now they are a lifelong, you know, friends of mine. We talk still today, and we named ourselves at the end of this badass black chrysalis. And I knew that the badass part was right because that's one of my names. I'm bad and bougie right now, but when I was growing up, I was bad Billy boy. So being a badass isn't criminal or in a bad way. Being a real badass now is doing the right thing at the right time for the right reasons, and that's what we got together to do and to learn and to grow with each other. And I love these people. They're going to be great friends of mine for a long, long time. They like family.
All right, that's what's up. I got one more question before we go, and I ask all my guests this one question, and that question is: if you had one word to describe this journey that you're on, what would that one word be, and why?
I've said it throughout this interview. Love.
Mm,
Um, I wouldn't be on this journey of reentry. I wouldn't be on the reentry journey show, but I definitely wouldn't be on my journey of reentry had it not been for the fact that I learned to love myself. That the love that my mother showed me my entire life, that I always had shown my friends, even to a fault. The love that I showed when they mentioned my father in a board hearing after he passed, and I cried in front of them, which I hated. That I gave them that the love that I shed when I cried for 30 days and 30 nights straight when my mother passed. The love that I'm able to show people who are strangers and who are friends and foes and family. Matter of fact, my sister texted me yesterday, and asked me for forgiveness for not visiting me not one day while I was incarcerated for 31 years and 22 days. And I said, your forgiveness was already granted to you because I'm in your life. Like I just came from Thanksgiving at your house with your kids and grandkids, our family. I said, that's a sign that you've already been forgiven. And
right.
because I love you. Like that's nothing. That because you didn't come visit me, I understand. I put myself in that position. It was meant, everything is meant to be. And you ain't hurt me. I missed you. I would have loved to have seen you, but here you are now. You welcome me into your house. And so love is this unconditional power that we all have. And love does not ever exist. It's just we choose not to show it. And so hate and anger and frustration, all these things creep in when you don't express that love, when you hide it, when you put it away to the side, or when you dim it, these things creep in. But we all have the power of love, and it is always there for us. And that is the word. I wouldn't be the editor in chief of the Bayview newspaper, loving on my community, had it not been that I was born and raised in love, even when I didn't even know it.
That's right. So, for those that may be tuning in or tuning in later, they want to get and reach you and get in contact with you. How can they go about doing that?
Oh man, I have so many emails, but I'm gonna give you the one that I check the most now, and that is William WILLIAM at sfbayview.com. That's SF as in Sam, Frank, B as in boy, A as in apple, Y as in yellow, V as in victory, I as in Indian, E as in echo, W as in William at sfbayview.com, and you can reach me there. I answer all my emails, and I'm looking for those stories, those Black first stories, financial stories. I'm looking for a comic strip that we could put in for political satire. I'm looking for anything Black that's Black first. How does it help promote, empower the Black community?
All right, and there you go. Want to say thank you again for being a guest on the Reentry Journey. For those of you that want to reach out to Mr. Palmer, want to reach out to William, he left his information on there. It will be typed with the description and the video link, so you'll be able to get it out of the email address. So feel free to reach out to him, and let's continue to build this bond, this strength amongst our people, and continue to shoot and regain our lost heritage and our lost estate as well.
One more thing. I'm sorry to cut.
Go ahead.
I would be guilty of sin if I didn't mention. I started a group called the Exodus Coalition to get Larry Green, Mujahid Shabazz, out of prison. He's a political prisoner, been there 48 years, out of San Francisco. He was falsely accused of what they call the Zebra Killers. Second, I am a self-taught artist, and I'm doing a mural project in the San Francisco jail for women who get family visits from their families. And the mural project is going to take about $10,000. We barely raised any. If you want to send some money to help get this mural project going, please contact me, and I'll shoot you a link for Life After Next so you can donate to the mural project. Thank you so much for having me, and for all those who's out there, I love you dearly.
All right. And there you have it. Another episode of the Reentry Show. I am your host. Want to say thank you to our guest, Mr. William Palmer. And those of y'all that's tuning in are always tune in and may tune in later on the show. Always remember, man, life is in your hand. Go out there and be great and take control of it. Don't let nobody else control you. You control yourself. I'm Cardell Sims. This is another episode of the Reentry Journey. And y'all have a great day.
Peace.
Peace.
$600,000 prisoners are released from prison every year. And all we talk about is the recidivism rate, highlighting failures. But this is a new time now. It's time to celebrate. Time to admire. Time to honor those who got out of prison and never looked back, doing something with themselves and their lives while